It is Monday, 7/31/2017. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And as normal, when I finally get back into the swing of doing the old jiu-jitsu thing, my schedule, what tabs I have available, everything just goes completely out the window. Add to that a very interesting start for my day, and absolutely no opportunity to get back and really dig deep into my old Twitter feed and find out exactly what the hell is going on in the old Twitter, in the old cryptosphere. So, you know, I've been keeping an eye on things. We still have tomorrow, 8/1/2017, for something to happen. We're not entirely certain what, if anything, will exactly happen. You know, will the Bitcoin network split? Will it stay whole? Will the fucking miners go off for BCC? How much will it be worth? Will they sell off? What the hell is going on? We're going to find out whether we want to or not. And, you know, it's funny. I do watch the Twitter feed a little bit. I did get a taste today. And there's just been something dismaying me just a slight bit about this whole debate. And it's this categorization of Bitcoin Cash as being a quote-unquote altcoin. That's not exactly true. What's happening is a small number of people that have a lot of money have been doing this I guess, astroturfing of some sort. And there is some legitimate movement towards segregated witness. I'm not going to deny that. I mean, they've got a healthy chunk of the network, and they may actually succeed in getting their thing through. And you know what? It could turn out to be completely fine. I could be totally mistaken in my prognosis for what I anticipate to happen within 2 years after they do segregated witness. But so far, I've been pretty good about predicting things out. So, you know, in that case, it's like I saw somebody else had talked to Mr. Antonopoulos about this and made an interesting suggestion that segregated witness is the only BIP where not doing the BIP makes what you're doing an altcoin, and whoever employs the BIP, their chain is now Bitcoin. Isn't that really funny? It's like a bunch of bankers came along and just said, "Oh, hey, look at this Bitcoin thing. This does payments. This is now ours. You know, you guys, whatever the fuck you're doing over there with your bullshit, that's not Bitcoin. I don't care that you're the majority of the network. I don't care that you've said no to this fucking thing for 2 years. You're mining an altcoin, a shitcoin, and we're mining Bitcoin, so go fuck off." That's basically what they're saying. It's kind of interesting. And so, like, nothing would please me more than absolutely nothing happening. Like, all this we flag support for possibly maybe on August 1st deploying segregated witness. You know, I think I'm really hoping it's all window dressing. And you know, as a matter of fact, when you do check out segregated witness in Google, you know, you type in segregated witness, hit enter. There's this page that you get for that. It's like SegWit.co or something like that. And at the top, it tells you the status of segregated witness. And it still says no, or at least it said no last time I checked, and a frowning face on it. Also, though, it has activation periods down below that. And if you click on them, you find that segregated witness has yet to hit a single activation point, or a single activation threshold. They've failed every single period. So why is it these guys think they're just going to like gank the network and call what they're doing Bitcoin, and everybody's just going to go along with that? I don't understand what's going on there, really. I don't. You know, it's like, are these people delusional, or do they know something I don't know and they've really already inserted fucked up code into Bitcoin that's going to fuck everything up? Or, you know, what the fuck? What is the source of this confidence? Is it all just bullshit and trying to play it like they've already won and, you know, until everybody believes them? Or, you know, what exactly is the basis for all this confidence? Regardless of what it actually is, we're going to find out within the next 24 hours. But anyway, as usual, we do first stances on here. And just to let you guys know, I did go back to jiu-jitsu today. And I didn't go to a fundamentals class. I went to a regular class. And it was good. I did have to kind of bow out for just a little bit while my heart rate got back down. But I've noticed something that, like, if I've really pushed myself hard once, that, like, you know, getting back up there is a little bit harder. I don't know if it's just I need to really warm up my heart or something, or I don't know. I don't get it. But it's like I'll feel like I'm really tacking out and just I have to go, or, you know, whatever. And then if I just wait it out, you know, just like 2 or 3 minutes, make an effort to try and get my breathing back down, next thing I know, I'm ready to go back out on the mat. So, you know, I got to work on that, shortening up that interval, maybe not taking up so much energy to begin with, but either way, I'm back in the door. And that's I think the point where that's the most difficult point, really, is just staying with it. You know, yeah, it hurts a little bit, and yeah, you gotta watch out for somebody not paying attention to you, and when you tell them, hey, you know, you got to watch out for my arm here. You're going to break my arm if you go too hard. You know, but I think in the long run it'll be worth it. You know, that putting in the effort and putting in the time, and you know, the fact of the matter is that you're not always going to fight at your best. You know, you can't choose combat when it chooses you. You know, you're not guaranteed that you're going to be 100% when somebody decides they want to throw down with you. So, you know, learning to deal with it while you do have an injury, learning how to compensate, I can see some value in that. So, I don't know, I might actually even bump up my game and increase the number of times I go this week, because I'm feeling the need. I'm feeling the need to do it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down a little bit of Fear Factory here. Some old school Fear Factory demanufacture here on Coin Metal. And that was The Blister Exists. My apologies for that long opening song segment. But man, let me tell you what, it's been a busy day for me. Been here, been there, been everywhere except for sitting in front of the goddamn screen looking at my coins, trying to find out what's going on out there. Oh wow, look at that. If you've been watching the Verge, it just shot up to 115 and back down again. Wow. Just a mad tear there. Made somebody some money, unfortunately. Not me. It's not in any condition to take advantage of that. Anywho, enough about me and my poor stock decisions. I've never claimed to be the greatest trader in the world, and I most certainly never will. Unless, of course, I make a really great call, and then I might claim it for just that one call. And then the rest of the time I'll just abandon that claim. Because the last thing I want is for you guys to be like, you know, at some point we'll be like contacting, you know, we'll have like some greater interface for you guys other than just the Telegram and IRC, which you can find me in. But, you know, that you'd be like flicking it back to me. And it's like, dude, come on. I don't need to deal with that. So, yeah, like I said before, I really didn't have a whole lot of opportunity to examine what was going on out here in the cryptoverse. Although, from what I can see so far, Let's see what this current price... Holy shit! The current price for Bitcoin is $28.53.19. Man, we're crouching the shit out of that 3,000. I think we'll hit it either way, whether or not we get the whole splitting thing. But I got this article here, and it's on CoinDesk, and it says, could SPV support a billion Bitcoin users, sizing up a scaling claim? And you know what? I want to just go ahead. You know what? I'm going to read the article first before I go freaking out. This is by Jameson Lopp. He is not, or she is not, provided us with a picture, so discerning whether Jameson has a penis. I'm going to put it 75-25. Okay. We can live with that. And this is written on July 30th, 2017 at 12:45 UTC by Mr. Jameson, or Mrs. or Ms. or whatever the case may be. Jameson Lopp is a software engineer at BitGo, creator of Satoshi.info, and founder of BitcoinSig.com. In this opinion piece, Lopp takes a deep dive into claims that it's safe to remove Bitcoin's block size limit and instead rely on existing simplified payment verification methods. Let's check it out. A new claim is being perpetuated in the Bitcoin scaling debate. We are hearing that it is safe to remove the block size limit because Bitcoin can easily scale to huge block sizes that would support billions of users via existing, quote, simplified payment verification SPV methods. Supposedly, SPV is very scalable due to the small amount of data it requires an SPV client to store, send, and receive. Let's dig into this claim and examine it from multiple perspectives. How a SPV works. Satoshi described the high-level design for SPV in the Bitcoin white paper, though it wasn't implemented until 2 years later when Mike Hearn created Bitcoin J. And let's click on that. And that is, what is Bitcoin J? Bitcoin J is a library for working with the Bitcoin protocol. It can maintain a wallet, send, receive transactions without needing a local copy of the Bitcoin core, and has many other advanced features. It's implemented in Java, but can be used from any JVM compatible language. Examples in Python and JavaScript are included, and we're not going to go that deep into it. Continuing on with the original CoinDesk article from Jameson. Number 8, and this is the description of simplified payment verification. It is possible to verify payments without running a full network node. A user only needs to keep a copy of the block headers of the longest proof of work chain, which he can get by querying network nodes until he's convinced he has the longest chain, and obtain the Merkle branch linking the transaction to the block it's timestamped in. He can't check the transaction for himself, but by linking it to a place in the chain, he can see a network node has accepted it, and blocks added after it further confirm the network has accepted it. As such, the verification is reliable as long as honest nodes control the network, but is more vulnerable if the network is overpowered by an attacker. While the network nodes can verify transactions for themselves, the simplified method can be fooled by an attacker's fabricated transactions for as long as the attacker can continue to overpower the network. One strategy to protect against this would be to accept alerts from network nodes when they detect an invalid block, prompting the user's software to download the full block and alerted transactions to confirm the inconsistency. Businesses that receive frequent payments will probably still want to run their own nodes for independent security and quicker verification. They're just nibbling away at it. I mean, if you look at this shit from the... I'm going to continue with this article. Sorry. I'm trying really hard not to jump off into a tangent here. Hold on. Early SPV implementations were quite naive. They downloaded the entire blockchain, which was no more efficient than a full node in terms of bandwidth. By throwing away transactions that weren't relevant to the SPV client's wallet, it was able to gain substantial disk usage savings. It took another 18 months for BIP 37 to be published, providing a specification for Bitcoin filtering of transactions, thus relying upon the block header's Merkle root to prove inclusion of a transaction in a block, as Satoshi had described. This provided greatly reduced bandwidth usage. When an SPV client syncs with the Bitcoin network, it connects to one or more fully validating Bitcoin nodes, determines the latest block at the tip of the chain, and then requests all of the block headers with a get headers command for blocks from the last block it synced up to the chain tip. It synced up to the chain tip. If the SPV client is only interested in specific transactions corresponding to a wallet, it will construct a Bloom filter based upon all the addresses for which its wallet owns private keys, and send a filter load command to the full nodes so that they know to only return transactions matching the filter. After syncing block headers and possibly loading a Bloom filter, the SPV client sends a get data command to request every single possibly filtered block they missed out on seeing since the last time they were last online sequentially. Once the client is in sync, if it remains connected to the full node peers, it will only receive inventory messages for transactions that match the loaded Bloom filter. SPV client scaling. From a client's point of view, Bloom filtering is a very efficient means to find relevant transactions in the blockchain while using minimal CPU resources, bandwidth, and disk space. Every Bitcoin block header is a mere 80 bytes, so at time of writing, it's only 38 megabytes of data for the entire 8+ year history of the blockchain. Each year, roughly 52,560 blocks only adds 4.2 megabytes regardless of the size of blocks in the blockchain. The Merkle tree that is used to prove inclusion of a transaction in a block also scales extremely well, because each new layer that gets added to the tree doubles the total number of leaves it can represent. You don't need a very deep tree in order to compactly. I'm having a little trouble reading that one there. Compactly prove inclusion of a transaction, even amongst a block with millions of transactions. There's a little bit of a diagram here via Mastering Bitcoin. I guess this is from Mastering Bitcoin or something. The Merkle tree data structure is so efficient, it can represent 16 million transactions with a depth of only 24. And come on, arrow over, you bastard. Oh, no wonder my browser's over too far. The Merkle tree data structure is so efficient that it can represent 16 million transactions with a depth of only 24. This is sufficient to represent an 8 gigabyte block. Yet the Merkle tree proof for such a transaction remains under 1 KB in size, kilobyte. And then, let's see here. average block size, blah, blah, blah. It's quite clear that from an SPV client perspective, the Bitcoin network could be scaled to multi-gigabyte blocks, and SPV clients would have little trouble processing the small amounts of data required, even on a mobile phone with a 3G connection. But alas, scaling the Bitcoin network is not nearly that simple. SPV server scaling. While SPV is incredibly efficient for clients, the same does not hold true for the server, that is, the full nodes to which the SPV clients make requests. This method exhibits poor scalability for a number of reasons. Nodes in the network have to process an extremely large amount of data to return the results for just a single peer, and they must repeat this work on every block for each peer that requests it. Disk I/O quickly becomes a bottleneck. Every SPV client must sync the entire blockchain from the last time it had contact with the network, or, if it believes it missed transactions, it will need to rescan the entire blockchain since the wallet creation date. In the worst case, at the time of writing, this is approximately 150 gigabytes. The full node must load every single block from disk, filter it to the client's specifications, and return the result. Since blockchains are a form of append-only ledger, this amount will never stop growing. Without extensive protocol changes, blockchain pruning is incompatible with BIP37. It expects all blocks to be available at all full nodes that advertise node_bloom. BIP37 SPV clients can be lied to by omission. To combat this, SPV clients connect to multiple nodes, usually 4, though it's still not a guarantee. SPV clients can be partitioned off the main network by a Sybil attack. This increases the load on the network of full nodes by a factor of 4. For every connected SPV client that has been synchronized to the tip of the blockchain, each incoming block and transaction must be individually filtered. This involves a non-negligible amount of CPU time and must be done separately for every connected SPV client. Crunching the numbers. At the time of writing, there are approximately 8,300 full nodes running that accept incoming connections. Around 8,000 of them advertise node_bloom and should thus be capable of serving requests from SPV clients. But how many SPV clients can the current number of listening full nodes reasonably support? What would be required in order for the network to be comprised of full nodes that can support both a billion daily users and blocks large enough to accommodate their transactions? Bitcoin Core defaults to a maximum of 117 incoming connections, which would create an upper bound of 936,000 available sockets on the network. However, the majority of these sockets are already consumed today. Each full node connects to 8 other full nodes by default. Bitcoin Core developer Luke Jr.'s very rough node count estimates 100,000 total nodes at time of writing, 92,000 of which don't make sockets available for SPV clients. This eats up 800,000 available sockets just for full nodes, leaving only 136,000 sockets available for SPV clients. This leads me to conclude that around 85% of available sockets are consumed by the network mesh of full nodes. It's worth noting that Luke Jr.'s estimation method can't determine how much time non-listening nodes spend online. Surely at least some of them disconnect and reconnect periodically. My node that powers Satoshi.info averages 100 full node 8 outgoing, 92 incoming peers, and 25 SPV clients. That's 80% of the available sockets being consumed by full nodes. If we want even 1 billion SPV clients to be able to use such a system, there will need to be a sufficient full node there will need to be sufficient full node resources available to service them. Network sockets, CPU cycles, disk I/O, and so on. Can we make the math work out? In order to give the SPV scaling claims the benefit of the doubt, I'll use some conservative assumptions that each of the billion SPV users 1. Send and receive 1 transaction per day. 2. Sync their wallet to the tip of the blockchain once per day. 3. Query 4 different nodes when syncing to decrease the chances of being lied to by omission. A billion transactions per day, if evenly distributed, which they surely would not be, would result in about 7 million transactions per block. Due to the great scalability of Merkle trees, it would only require 23 hashes to prove inclusion of a transaction in such a block. 736 bytes of data plus an average of 500 bytes for the transaction. Add another 12 kilobytes worth of block headers per day, and an SPV client would still only be using about 20 KB worth of data per day. However, 1 billion transactions per day generates 500 gigabytes worth of blockchain data for full nodes to store and process. And each time an SPV client connects and asks to find any transactions for its wallet in the past day, 4 full nodes must read and filter 500 gigabytes of data each. Holy crap, that's over 2 terabytes. Recall that there are currently around 136,000 sockets available for SPV clients on the network of 8,000 SPV serving full nodes. If each SPV client uses 4 sockets, then only 34,000 clients can be syncing with the network at any given time. If there were more people online at once than that, other users trying to open their wallet would get connection errors when trying to sync to the tip of the blockchain. Thus, in order for the current network to support 1 billion SPV users that sync once per day, while only 34,000 can be syncing at any given time, that's 24,400 quote groups of users that must connect, sync, and disconnect. Each user would need to be able to sync the previous day of data in less than 3 seconds. This poses a bit of a conundrum because it would require each full node to be able to read and filter 167 gigabytes of data per second per SPV client continuously. At 20 SPV clients per full node, that's 3,333 gigabytes per second. I'm unaware of any storage devices capable of such throughput. It should be possible to create a huge RAID array of high-end solid-state disks that can achieve around 600 megabytes per second each. You would need 5,555 drives in order to achieve the target throughput. The linked example disk costs $400 at time of writing and has approximately 1 terabyte of capacity, enough to store 2 days' worth of blocks in this theoretical network. Thus, you'd need a new array of disks every 2 days, which would cost you over $2.2 million. This amounts to over $400 million to store a year's worth of blocks while still meeting the required read throughput. Of course, we can play around with these assumptions and tweak various numbers. Can we produce a scenario in which the node cost is more reasonable? Let's try. What if we had 100,000 full nodes all running cheaper, high-capacity spinning disks, and we somehow convinced them all to accept SPV client connections? What if we also managed to modify the full node software to support 1,000 connected SPV clients? That would give us 100 million sockets available for SPV clients that could support 25 million simultaneous SPV clients on the network. Thus, each SPV client would have 2160 seconds per day to sync with the network. For a full node to keep up with demand, it would need to maintain a consistent read speed of 231 megabytes per second per SPV client, which would result in 231 gigabytes per second, assuming 1,000 connected SPV clients. At 7,200 RPMs, at 7,200 RPM hard drive can read about 220 megabytes per second. So you could achieve this read throughput with a RAID 0 array of a bit more than 1,000 drives. At the time of writing, you could purchase a 10 terabyte hard drive for $400, thus a $400,000 RAID array of these drives would enable you to store 20 days worth of blocks. This amounts to a much more manageable $7.2 million to store a year's worth of blocks while still achieving the disk read throughput requirements. It's worth noting that no one in their right mind would run a RAID 0 array with this many drives because a single drive failure would corrupt the entire array of disks. Thus, a RAID array with fault tolerance would be even more expensive and less performant. It also seems incredibly optimistic that 100,000 organizations would be willing to pony up millions of dollars per year to run a full node. Another point to note is that these conservative estimates also assume that SPV clients would somehow coordinate to distribute their syncing times evenly throughout each day. In reality, there would be daily and weekly cyclical periods and troughs of activity. The network would need to have a higher capacity than estimated above in order to accommodate peak demand. Otherwise, many SPV clients would fail to sync during peak usage hours. Interestingly, it turns out that changing the number of sockets per node doesn't impact the overall load on any given full node. It still ends up needing to process the same amount of data. What really matters is what matters in this equation is the ratio of full nodes to SPV clients, and of course the size of the blocks in the chain that the full nodes need to process. The end result appears inescapable. The cost of operating a full node capable of servicing the SPV demand of 1 billion daily on-chain transactions would be astronomical. Seeking the middle ground. By this point, it's quite clear that 1 billion transactions per day puts the cost of operating a fully validating node outside the reach of all but the wealthiest entities. But what if we flip this calculation on its head and instead try to find a formula for determining the cost of adding load to the network by increasing on-chain transaction throughput? In order for the Bitcoin network to support a target number of transactions per second, adding capacity for 86,400 net new daily users, we can calculate the per node disk throughput requirements as average bytes divided by transactions times transactions divided by seconds times total SPV users times sockets used per SPV client times SPV clients per full node divided by total network sockets available for SPV clients. This gives us the minimum disk read throughput per second for a full node to service demand from SPV clients. With the existing characteristics of the network and available technology, we can extrapolate an estimated cost of node operation by using disk throughput as the assumed bottleneck. Note that there are surely other resource constraints that would come into play, thus increasing the cost of full node operation. For the following calculations, I use these assumptions. Number 1, average transaction size in bytes, 500 bytes based on Satoshi.info. Number 2, total number of SPV users, 1 transaction per day. Number 3, sockets consumed by an SPV client equals standard of 4. 4. Number of sockets available for SPV clients on each full node equals prior calculated number of 20. 5. Total network sockets available for SPV clients equals prior calculated number of 136,000. And then 6. Cost of hard drive throughput and space equals 410 terabyte 7200 RPM drives in RAID 0 configuration. We can see that in terms of disk throughput, it stays fairly reasonable until we surpass 100 transactions per second. At that point, you'd start having to buy multiple disks and stripe them in a RAID array in order to achieve the performance requirements. Unfortunately, the disk throughput requirements and thus cost to operate a full node increase quadratically in relation to the number of transactions per second. The costs quickly become untenable for most entities. For reference, recall that Visa processes about 2,000 transactions per second. On Bitcoin, this would require nearly $200,000 worth of disks just to keep up with SPV demand. One point worth noting is that these charts keep the number of full nodes constant at 8,000. In reality, they would likely decrease as the cost went up, thus raising the throughput requirements and cost of operating the remaining nodes to increase even faster. This appears to be a compounding force of node centralization. And hold on, let's see how much farther this thing is. Golly gee willikers. That's actually not too much longer. Alright, so where are we here? Potential considered flaw? No, we haven't gotten there yet. Alright, you know what? We're going to pause for just a moment here at other SPV weaknesses, because that seems to be we're going to start right below transactions per second little graphic here. I can see one kind of flaw here, though. Like, one assumption would be that I think is kind of being missed here is that the increased utility of hosting a node goes way up if you can increase your or decrease your network costs, because you're not using another intermediary's nodes. I'm assuming these guys are going to be compensated through some sort of transaction fees or some sort of percentage of transaction fees or some sort of business. I have no idea how this thing works. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pause this thing here, and we're going to go ahead and kick back into some music here. I got some Slipknot rolling in the background, but we paused with Slipknot last time, so we're going to go ahead and switch it up to something different here. A little bit of Textures, Regenesis, here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Remove Separate Self. I don't know that I've ever heard them play that live, but from what I understand, they are still out there on their European tour for supporting No Absolutes. And it's funny, man, they're on tour for one album, and they just released a new one on, I think it was the 28th, 0 Days. I have not had an opportunity to listen to but one song on it. I'm feeling kind of denied, but I gotta wait until after 8/1. I gotta find out what happens, see if I have any additional funds I can splurge on stuff, or or nothing will happen, and the Bitcoin that I have will just be worth more money, and that's always good too. I'm not going to complain about it. In any case, let's go ahead and get back to this article here, and this is on. I'm going to have to scroll way the hell back down and just get back down to where we were. The title for this is, Could SPV Support a Billion Bitcoin Users? Sizing Up a Scaling Claim. And this is by Jameson Lopp. And I did provide a link for this in the in the Telegram for Verge Currency. If you'd like, you can feel free to join us there, or in the IRC chat room. It's always lively in there. Actually, it's kind of dead in there at the moment, but it's only because everybody's using Telegram today. So anyway, let's go ahead and get back down to this article. Here we are at the appropriate place, and we stopped off right at the illustration for transactions per second. There's a little graph there, and yeah, let's roll with it. We can see in terms of disk throughput, it stays fairly reasonable until we surpass 100 transactions per second. At that point, you start having to buy multiple disks and stripe them in a RAID array in order to achieve the performance requirements. Unfortunately, the disk throughput requirements and thus cost to operate a full node increase quadratically in relation to the number of transactions per second. The costs quickly become untenable for most entities. Let's see, and I think we already covered this section. Oh no. For reference, recall that Visa processes about 2,000 transactions per second. On Bitcoin, this would require nearly 200,000 worth of disk space just to keep up with SPV demand. One point worth noting is that these charts keep the full number of nodes constant at 8,000. In reality, they would likely decrease as the cost went up, thus raising the throughput requirements and cost of operating the remaining nodes to increase even faster. This appears to be a compounding force of node centralization. As I concluded in How to Save Bitcoin's Node Network from Centralization, one of the root issues of contention around increasing the block size is the cost of node operation. The above calculations give us a glimpse of the complexities of calculating the cost of node operation because there are so many variables involved. These calculations were keeping most of the variables constant and only focusing on disk I/O cost. The unscientific polls I ran a year earlier showed that 98% of node operators would not pay more than $100 per month to run a node, even if they were highly invested in Bitcoin. I'd be willing to bet that increasing Bitcoin's on-chain transactions by an order of magnitude would result in the loss of a majority of full nodes, while an increase of 2 orders of magnitude would result in the loss of 90% or more of nodes. I believe it's safe to assume that that very few entities would be willing to go to the trouble of building RAID arrays in order to run a full node. If this is the case, it's untenable to claim that such increases would be fine for the average user because my apologies there, because there wouldn't be nearly enough full node disk throughput or sockets available to service SPV demand. Other SPV weaknesses. SPV is great for end users who don't require the security or privacy of a fully validating node. However, there are plenty of reasons that could be considered showstoppers for a mostly SPV Bitcoin network, regardless of its scalability. SPV makes major assumptions that result in it having weaker security and privacy than a fully validating node. Number 1, SPV clients trust miners to correctly validate and enforce the rules of Bitcoin. They assume that the blockchain with the greatest cumulative proof of work is also a valid chain. You can learn about the difference between SPV and full node security models in this article, and we may yet do that. Number 2, SPV clients assume that full nodes will not lie to them by omission. A full node can't lie and say that a transaction existed in a block when it didn't actually exist, but it can lie by saying that a transaction that does exist in a block did not happen. Number 3, because SPV clients strive for efficiency, they only request data for transactions belonging to them. This results in a massive loss of privacy. Interesting, the co-author of BIP37, Matt Carollo, regrets creating it. A big issue today for privacy of users in the system is BIP37 SPV bloom filters. I'm sorry I wrote that. Hey man, you can't predict how people are going to use the tech that you put out there. BIP37 bloom filtered SPV clients have basically no privacy. Even when using unreasonably high false positive rates, Jonas Nick, a security engineer at Blockstream, found that given a single public key, he could then determine 70% of the other addresses belonging to a given wallet. You could work around SPV's poor privacy by splitting bloom filters among many peers, though this would make scalability of SPV even worse by placing more load on more full nodes. BIP37 is also vulnerable to trivial denial of service attacks. Demonstration code is available here that is able to cripple full nodes by making many fast inventory requests through specially constructed filters that cause continuous disk seek and high CPU usage. The author of the attack's proof of concept, core developer Peter Todd, explains, quote, "The fundamental issue is that you can consume a disproportionate amount of disk I/O bandwidth with very little network bandwidth." Even to this day, the fraud alerts that Satoshi described in the white paper have not been implemented. In fact, research efforts in this area have shown it may not even be possible to implement lightweight fraud alerts. For example, a fraud alert only works if you can actually get the data required to prove the fraud. If a miner does not provide that data, the fraud alert can't be created. As such, SPV clients don't have the level of security that Satoshi envisioned they would have. From a very high-level perspective, a world consisting mostly of SPV nodes makes consensus changes such as total coin cap or even editing of the ledger much easier. Fewer fully validating nodes means more centralized enforcement of consensus rules and thus less resistant to changing consensus rules. Some people may consider that a feature. Most consider it a flaw. Most surely consider it a flaw. I certainly do. Potential improvements. SPV security and scalability could potentially be improved in a number of ways via fraud proofs, fraud hints, input proofs, spent proofs, and so on. But as far as I'm aware, none of these are past the concept phase, much less ready for production deployment. Bloom filter commitments could improve privacy, but there is a trade-off for usefulness between the size of the filter and its false positive rate. Too coarse means peers download far too many false positive blocks. Too fine means the filters will be absolutely gigantic and impractical for anybody to download with an SPV client. It would reduce the load of full node disk throughput, but the trade-off would be increased bandwidth by both SPV clients and full nodes because entire blocks would have to be transferred across the network. This recently proposed compact client-side filtering eliminates privacy issues, but it does require full blocks to be downloaded if there is a match against the filter, though not necessarily via the P2P network. UTXO commitments could enable SPV clients to sync their client UTXO set and thus wallet balance without requiring the full node to scan the entire blockchain. Rather, it would provide a proof of the UTXOs existing. It may be possible to guard against Bloom filter DOS attacks by requiring SPV clients to either submit proof of work, untenable on a battery-powered device like a phone, or channel-based micropayments, impossible to bootstrap if a client hasn't received money yet, but neither offers a straightforward solution. The disk read requirements for full nodes could likely be reduced in a number of ways via improved indexing of data and batched processing of requests from SPV clients. Ryan X. Charles pointed out in the comments below that using BIP70's payment protocol to directly tell someone, you know what, I'm getting tripped up here. Am I getting a message by somebody specific? Oh, no. Sorry. You know, I gotta paste this thing really quick. I had somebody bit me in one of my IRC chans, and I'm just throwing him what we're reading right now. He's asking me for FUD, and this is pretty FUDish. No, not really FUD, but, you know, fun. Ryan X. Charles pointed out that in the comments below that using BIP70's payment protocol to directly tell someone the UTXO ID of the payment you're sending them would remove the need for them to use Bloom filters at all, since they could request the data directly from full nodes. This is incredibly efficient if you're willing to accept the privacy trade-off. Suffice to say, there is plenty of room for improvement. Many challenges will need to be overcome in order to improve on-chain scalability. Suitable scaling solutions. If we ignore the multitude of miscellaneous other issues with scaling to larger block sizes such as block propagation latency, UTXO set scaling, initial blockchain syncing times, and security and privacy trade-offs, it may be technically possible to scale Bitcoin to 1 billion daily on-chain users if there are entities willing to invest significant resources to develop software improvements and operate the required infrastructure, like banks. It seems highly unlikely that Bitcoin would evolve organically in that fashion. However, because there are so much more efficient ways to scale the system, because there are so much more efficient ways to scale the system. The most efficient is a form of scaling already being used: consolidation around centralized API providers. There tend to be huge trust and privacy trade-offs when employing these methods, but many such interactions involve contractual agreements that mitigate some of the dangers. In terms of scaling in a trustless manner, Layer 2 protocols such as Lightning offer much more efficient scaling because the high volumes of data being transferred are only being sent amongst the small number of parties directly involved in a given off-chain transaction. You can think of it as the difference between broadcast to all Ethernet communication layer versus a routed IP layer. The internet couldn't scale without routing, and neither can the Internet of Money. While this approach to scaling is much more technically complex than traditional centralized scaling and will require overcoming some unique challenges, the upfront investment of resources for research and development of these routing protocols will pay huge dividends over the long term for bankers, as they reduce the load that needs to be borne by the entire network by orders of magnitude. There are also plenty of options between that can be explored. Number 1, centralized custodial schemes, back to trust, with perfect privacy that use Chum tokens such as Hashcash. Number 2, centralized non-custodial zero-knowledge proof systems such as Tumblebit. Number 3, federated semi-trust multi-signature sidechains. Number 4, miner-secured semi-trusted drive chains. And I've never checked those out. I'm still convinced that in the long term Bitcoin will need much larger blocks. But let's be patient and tactful by trying to scale the system as efficiently as possible while maintaining its security and privacy properties. An auditable, slightly decentralized PayPal would surely have utility if it was functional from the standpoint of the average user, but it would not offer the level of financial sovereignty that Bitcoiners enjoy today. Absolutely, good sir. Absolutely. Could not agree more. However, I don't know. I think the problem that you're seeing, or that would be seen in this kind of a setup, is that we're talking about expanding scale without expanding interest. You know, if it's in your interest to be using an SPV client or be utilizing an SPV node, if it's worth it enough to you, I mean, shit. If you only had to break $100 worth of cost for that option, I mean, what if you did have enough transaction throughput that it was actually worth it to you to do that? I mean, then you know, all kinds of interesting possibilities come up, where all of the nodes, I mean, all of the participants or all the merchants at least, that are utilizing this SPV protocol infrastructure, whatever, that they would be able to do their thing that much faster by having an actual node, you know, as opposed to depending on a third party to do the investment. See, they're really Jameson is really innocuous and mysterious about that, or you know, he's not very specific about who these parties are that are going to be ponying up all this money for this RAID 0 array that's going to be hosting all this transaction data. And I can tell you right now, the only people out there that can afford it are fucking banks and legacy financiers. There isn't anybody, I don't think, in Bitcoin that would be able to regularly afford the hardware upgrades for that, you know, for these on-chain or off-chain or whatever scaling solutions, in addition to their mining operations. And besides that, I don't think that kind of centralization of interest is actually positive for everybody involved. You know, I think that, again, if I'm a merchant and I'm going to be using Bitcoin as a payment method, it behooves me to host a fucking full node. It behooves me, because it's in my interest to use that as a payment method, to host a full node, to give it electricity and bandwidth and all that other shit. Because, I mean, really, if you can't break $100 a month in costs, then you shouldn't be taking Bitcoin transactions. You should be fucking waiting until there's a density of users around you, or a density of users using your product that's high enough to necessitate doing that. You know, but I think it's silly to try and expand the interest of Bitcoin, retain the interest of Bitcoin to a finite and an ever more finite number of participants, while trying to expand the scale of the number of users. This is the basically inverse of the intended participation model of Bitcoin. That I think the expectation, or at least the expectation when I first started in Bitcoin, was that everybody that was participating in Bitcoin would be hosting a part of the infrastructure. And that was kind of taken away a little bit with ASICs. But I really think if we can maintain the actual thing being in the hand of the public, and not bankers and legacy financiers exclusively, or at least those who can afford the licensure or the data center capacities for it or whatever, that if we can maintain mining of cryptocurrencies as a legal and legitimate enterprise for the average person without licensure to get into, then what we're seeing now with some of the bigger chip players getting into the manufacture of cryptocurrency mining boards, such as NVIDIA and AMD, this is, I think, again, if we can maintain grip of the fucking Vorpal blade here, that we're going to see a massive bloom of mining again. And this time I think it'll take it over the threshold that we would approach a state to where the kind of centralization that we've seen in like telecommunications and cable and auto manufacture and all throughout the economy, to where you have just a couple centralized major players, and they're usually subsidiaries of major players of other industries or some shit like that. I think that we're heading toward a diffusion period of that interest, that it's going to be expanding back out to people like you and me. And I keep touching back to this one article, but I think it's a poignant example of what I'm trying to say here. Is I read an article from, it was either Vice or Motherboard, one of the two, and they were talking about how the John Deere, the farmers out in the Midwest, and I can't remember which state specifically it was, but it was primarily a agriculture state. They're having this problem now with John Deere, where John Deere is like trying to turn into the Apple of large-scale agriculture equipment, to where you can't service your own equipment. You have to hire one of their technicians to come out and fix your shit. And what this has been causing is these farmers are turning into hackers. They're getting on the fucking dark web and they're buying black market copies of the firmware for their combines and shit, so that they can make them run on fuels that they themselves are producing on their own farm. Can you believe that shit? Is that a reality hack or what? You're breaking two monopolies right there in one shot. You're breaking John Deere and ExxonMobil in one shot. How much more fucking revolutionary and 21st century can you get than that? And farmers. Motherfucking farmers. The most socially demeaned industry that we are so wholly dependent upon. And they're going to save us from this shit. Because they're going to diffuse the production of firmware back out to farming kids, which is going to span to hot rod kids, because they're going to be racing tractors with modified motors and whatnot. Like, they're going to tweak the computers that are running the motors, and they're going to get really high performance out of them. And then one of these kids that's really interested in fucking watches those stupid ass what do you call that Paul Walker movie, Fast and the Furious. Just loves the whole 19 of the fucking Fast and the Furious movies, sees them racing these fucking tractors on methanol, and highly modified tractors and just says, oh my god, if I did that with my little rice burner, I'd blow away everybody on the strip. And then it would diffuse back into the city, and next thing you know, 16, 17-year-old kids are modding their fucking firmware for their vehicles and getting ultra high performance out of them. They're not even burning gasoline anymore. Shit, they're renting their garbage with a goddamn Mr. Vegematic from fucking Back in the Future sticking on the back of their vehicle. They're ganking your fucking garbage right off the side of the road and stuffing it in the vehicle and getting another 30, 40 miles down the road. I mean, you know, we're coming to that point, man. We're coming to the point. We're in the 21st century. There's no denying it anymore. And trying to hide behind laws and IP protections and shit like that and trying to contain this flood of fucking information that we look at least 8 to 12 hours a day, depending who you are. It's undeniable that it will make it into the wrong hands. The hands that it's been kept from all this time. And something beautiful will happen from it. And I think that's what's happening in many places where Bitcoin is touching, where they just got internet access less than a decade ago, and already they're leapfrogging ahead of us 2 and 3-fold every fucking year with the expansions of their cyber nets and their cellular communications networks. And they're going to blow us away within the next decade because we're still strapped down with fucking wire and fiber optic from coast to coast with all the little gateways in between and all the little knickknacks that contain the data and contain the flow. No. I think we're heading toward a massive diffusion period where no matter how many hands, no matter how many guns or cameras or microphones or whatever you have access to, you can't point enough guns and enough faces simultaneously to get enough compliance to keep your shit aright. And it's just going to slip out from under you. You're going to wake up one day, you're going to go out and take a seat at your breakfast table, and you're just going to see an empty fucking plate because somebody got your breakfast. And you're going to go to the refrigerator on your way to work and try and get your lunch out of there, and you're going to find out there's an empty bag in there because somebody got your fucking lunch. And after you get home from a starving 8 hours at your fucking job, and you pull in, and all you can think about is, oh my god, I'm so fucking hungry. You're going to come home, and you're going to sit down, and again, you're going to come home to an empty fucking plate, because somebody got your dinner too. Let's go ahead and kick it back down to some music here. Got a little bit of Tool going in the background. That always gets me poetic and ranty. I blame Maynard. It's all Maynard's fault. And I'm feeling the need for a little bit of Anthrax, because I haven't been playing any. Fuck it. You gotta believe. This one's off of For All Kings Disc 1 here on Coin Metal. And that was Meshuggah with Future Breed Machine. And I'll tell you what, if that's the first time you heard that song, you have lived a much more boring life than you've needed to. Terribly, terribly exciting music. I mean, especially if you are into metal. I mean, like I said, I've said this before on the show, but that album, I think I remember breathing once, maybe twice during the entire album. I mean, the rest of the time I was so absorbed, I wasn't sure that I was actually breathing. Just that it was such a wide departure from everything that I'd been listening to up to that point, and yet it was hammered and refined in such a way that it... You know, most of the bands that get that far off the beaten path, their hooks and whatnot become campy. You know, it's like hooks for the sake of hooks instead of this is an integral part of the song. Experience this, as a totality, not as a hook, or just something to catch your attention or something like that. And that album, the entire album from beginning to end, is a complete experience. It's not, just this one lead on this one song, second or third lead. No. You experience Destroy, Erase, Improve. You don't listen to it, you experience it. It's one of those very rare albums, like say 9 Inch Nails, the Downward Spiral. That album is an experience. It's not. It almost verges on not being music and almost just being like pure unadulterated information, like the visceral nerve sensation of Trent while he was going through this really dark period in his life, or a series of dark periods in his life. I don't know what he dredged upon to get that album, but like I said, the thing is an experience. It's not just Closer, and it's not just Mr. Self-Destruct. You got to consider it as a totality. Anyway, let's get back into some articles. I clicked on some links, just randomly, kind of, and Jameson had written a couple articles and linked to them. I don't know if we're going to get into this one just yet. It's some sort of topology shit. A lot of like, I don't know, a lot of diagrams, a bunch of math. You know how well we do with math on this show. It's funny considering how math-centric cryptocurrencies are, right? And I think we've covered the Bitcoin Cash debacle. I think that's so silly that the people that want to keep doing what Bitcoin was when they started are having to call their shit something else now. That's kind of funny. Anyway, let's get back into some articles. And whoa, interesting. Checking out the price really quick here. I'm on Bitcoin.com and it's reading out at $28.74. If I'm not mistaken, that's at least $20 up from what it was when the last time we saw it. That's pretty damn cool. Anyway, this one's on Bitcoin.com. XBT provider fined by NASDAQ. And this one was written July 28th of 2017. And fuck it, we're just going to do it. The issuer of Bitcoin exchange traded notes was found to be in several violations of NASDAQ's listing rules and subsequently fined, the exchange announced on Thursday. However, XBT provider argues that most of the violations occurred prior to its acquisition by global advisors. Also read Bitcoin ETN crosses 100 million after unprecedented demand from investors, partners with Zappo. Big fucking whoop-de-doo. Bunch of institutional investors flipping their money around with their imaginary Bitcoin based on possible Bitcoin that may exist, but we're not entirely certain they do. Or who owns them. Kind of like gold. XBT provider fined by NASDAQ. The Disciplinary Committee of NASDAQ Stockholm announced on Thursday that it has imposed a fine of SEK 1 million, approximately $121,698 on XBT provider for a breach of its, quote, rule book for issuers of warrants and certificates and other regulations in several respects. Yeah, whatever, a bunch of bullshit they made up. XBT provider is the issuer of Europe's only Bitcoin exchange traded notes, ETNs, Bitcoin Tracker 1 and Bitcoin Tracker Euro, which are both listed on the Nasdaq Nordic Exchange in Stockholm. When the two ETNs were admitted to list and trade on the Nasdaq exchange, the company agreed to comply with the exchange's rulebook, explained Nasdaq. However, The exchange has found that the company failed to comply with the internal routines and procedures provided in conjunction with its application. Specifically, it has failed to, number 1, ensure that the risk function reported to the board of directors. Number 2, to carry out an audit of the company's intranet and IT security. Number 3, to handle a material change in the operations in accordance with the internal rules. And number 4, to ensure that the regulatory compliance with applicable... To ensure that the regulatory... What? It should say to ensure that there is regulatory compliance with applicable legislation. And who authored this article? Kevin Helms. Well, I'm going to go by the name Kevin. He does have a penis. Bad on you, Kevin. Read your shit aloud, please. It helps. Alright, where are we at on this thing now? No, okay. NASDAQ has also found XBT Provider to be in breach of several sections of the rulebook. The list of violations includes failing to publish information for the public as required and failing to have documents referenced in its base prospectus available to view on its website during the entire term of the prospectus. Kevin, have you ever fucking heard of a comma? Learn what a comma is. Learn how to use it. Either that or relearn how to make a fucking sentence. That was 2 sentences, one of which was the vast majority of that paragraph. Dude, that was at least 2 sentences. Or you need to use a fucking comma. Sorry. In addition, the company has failed to publish its annual reports for 2015 and 2016 within the prescribed time, as well as failed to publish an interim report for the first half of 2015 on its website before the exchange pointed this out, and that was in quotes. Fewer violations after global advisors took over. The meeting before the disciplinary committee was held on July 17th. Daniel Masters, chairman of XBT Provider and Global Advisors, was present. While XBT Provider has largely admitted to the violations, it argued that most of them occurred when the company's owner and guarantor was KNC Group. Global Advisors acquired XBT Provider in June of 2016 when KNC Group filed bankruptcy. The company stated, XBT affirms that the company is guilty of the violations argued by the exchange, but argues that only 4 of the 24 violations occurred after the new owner, Global Advisors, took over ownership of XBT. Following NASDAQ's announcement, XBT Provider issued its own statement emphasizing that the majority of violations occurred within 2015 and the first 6 months of 2016, which was prior to its acquisition by Global Advisors Group. In addition, the company wrote, quote, "The board regrets that NASDAQ's press release of 27th July 2017 did not more prominently highlight the period in which the infractions occurred." The company also noted that Global Advisors has made major efforts to ensure that XBT maintains the highest standards with respect to regulatory compliance in the future. Since Global Advisors took over, XBT Providers ETNs have seen increasing demand from investors. In June, they crossed the 100 million threshold of assets under management. In addition, Britain's largest broker, Hargreaves Lansdown, is now offering the pair to its customers. Oh my god. What the fuck is going to happen with that shit? I'm really eager to find out how exactly that is paired with the business, of Bitcoin. I wonder if there is a link in here somewhere of how XBT is offering its shit. Yeah, here we go. There's Bitcoin Tracker 1. Let's check out what that business is about. This is NASDAQ, Bitcoin XBT, Bitcoin Tracker 1 XBT provider. And there's their website. Let's go to their website. Oh, the resource you're looking for has been removed. Had its name changed or is temporarily unavailable. God damn it. That's offensive. I say scam. Its information's unavailable. I don't give a fuck. It's listed on fucking NASDAQ. There have been other scams listed on NASDAQ. Big fucking whoop-de-doo. There'll be more scams listed on NASDAQ. Fuck, there's probably more scams on NASDAQ right now. But we won't find out until later. But in any case, yeah, I don't like the derivatives. You know, I think ideas like ETNs and fuck the what's the one that Gemini wants to do or is doing or whatever. They had some sort of securities offering that got denied. I can't remember what it was, but it was the same thing. It was another derivative. I mean, like, why am I going to buy derivatives if I can buy Bitcoin? What the fuck wrong is just buying Bitcoin? I just don't get it. I mean, especially because a private individual could sell you Bitcoin. Shit. What's wrong with that? I've thought about, like, the various ways to anonymously get the coins to yourself, and that it's all very, very easy stuff, you know, and it makes the idea of censoring Bitcoin a little tougher when you can directly interface with another person, but that's all going to be neutralized if they manage to get this Lightning Network bullshit in. They'll be able to censor your fucking transactions. They'll be like, oh, wait a minute. Did these guys go through a gateway at Bank of America to do their transaction? No. They didn't give a transaction fee to Bank of America on the Lightning Network for Bank of America? What's wrong with them? It's only 1 penny. What the fuck? I would rather pay the massive transaction fees that I'm paying now than have to depend on Bank of America to run the fucking Lightning Network and count on the idea that they're not going to interfere with my transactions, they're not going to report my transactions, they're not going to track my transactions. I don't trust them that far. They've already proven themselves completely incapable of duly delegating the trust that they're entrusted with now. So why am I going to entrust them with my crypto funds if I don't have to? I don't understand the mentality that, oh, we've got to embrace the legacy financiers. They've got the best Coke. I mean, that's about what it comes down to, man. And it's funny, I heard an allusion of that from Mr. Antonopoulos himself. He was saying something about like Silicon Valley and basically running on cocaine, something I've long suspected. Crazy. I mean, but you know, I was down in LA during the time when glam metal was a really big thing, and like that fucking hair bands were just falling out of the fucking woodwork. Spandex and hairspray. I mean, we literally etched a hole in the ozone layer with all the damn hairspray that we were putting up in the atmosphere. And, you know, it was a weird era. But to see that kind of, how should I say it, mania express itself, I was able to witness a lot of the curve. And like right now, I would say we're about at like Skid Row. It's it's semi-industrial. It's still got a little bit of dirt on the knees and whatnot, but for the most part, it's a bought product. I don't know. I don't think we're that far along. I think there's enough private mining going on out there that it's keeping the ball loose and on the field, and that's where it belongs, man. Like I said before on the show, don't mistake the current topology, the current geographical topology of the Bitcoin network for the topology of the network of tomorrow, because they are surely going to be different. I mean, you only have to look back, like year and a half, 2 years, we had Ghash.io. They were on the verge of 51% of the network. Everybody fucking freaked. And a bunch of miners redirected their fucking hashing power to other pools. And then the problem went away. I expect that there are people working on solutions to the current centralization in China. And I don't mean handing over the fucking processing, the transactions over to fucking Lightning networks. I think that's a fucking cop-out. It's like saying, hey, Banks, come and take me over! I mean, you might as well just, handcuff yourself to the fucking bedposts and, maybe put some lube on the bed table and hope that they actually use it when they get there. Gee willikers, people. It's fucking sickening. And I gotta tell you, this is just the impressions that I'm getting from, the fucking crypto media, and it can all be skewed and biased and fatalistic and bullshit and but again, I pick it up from all kinds of different sources. So, and you have to wonder exactly what the underlying interest is of the providers of these articles. And a lot of times they will tell you if they're involved in some sort of competition or involved in a project in some way, shape, or form. But that's not implicit that they weren't always involved. I mean, or maybe that there was a period of time in which somebody that is with them may have been involved in it, or knows somebody that works with those guys and thinks they're all really cool, and there's all kinds of bias floating around out there, and you really gotta look beyond the adjectives and look for some basic knowledge here, like global advisors. Who the fuck is global advisors? We're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to use the Google to our advantage. And I love doing this, honestly, because it tells you so much more information than if you just read the article absent-mindedly. And here we go. We got Gabby Global Advisors, and that's somebody in the UK, and Strategic Global Advisors, and I think we're going for Gabby here. Oh, I know another qualifier here to feed the Google. Global Advisors Bitcoin. Shit, it's the first one on the top. Let's hit that. Yeah, and Gabby is the first return on that. So, let's move forward with Gabby. G-A-B-I. Oh, wow. Interesting. They got a splash screen right up front with an accept decline here. Global Advisors Jersey Limited, important information. The following important information relates to the use of Global Advisors Jersey Limited GAJL website. Please read it and acknowledge your acceptance before accessing this website. GAJL is authorized and regulated by the Jersey Financial Services Commission in the conduct of investing business and fund services business. GAJL is registered as a commodity trading advisor operating pursuant to a CFTC regulation Article 4.7 with the Commodities Future Trading Commission and a member of the National Futures Association, number blah blah blah, we're not going to follow that. GAJL is a registered company with its trading office at Forum 3 Green Street, St. Helier, interesting, Jersey, Channel Islands. Interesting. And I want to do one little follow-up on that, because I have a suspicion. I always like to look at things like jurisdiction. Let's see. We'll try U.S. Securities jurisdiction. Because I'm doing this with one hand and holding the mic. I need to actually spend a little bit of money and get me oh, there we go, jurisdiction. Thank you, Google. I'm also doing this in the dark too. The Channel Islands Security Exchange has announced blah blah blah. And you know, apparently Google needs the parentheses. And I really kind of hate that they semi-disabled that function. You know, there used to be a time when Google had this really super ultra neat feature called Search Within Results. And I loved that thing because you get like 5 million results with your first really broad search, right? And then you would refine it by additional terms, and you get it down to like 10, 12 solid, non-ultra spammy returns that were very specific. And they took all that shit away. It's like they want to direct it all with like one shot, and then they want to like study why you wanted that thing, and so on and so forth. And it's all kind of boring. Anyway, so I'm looking through here on my Google returns for Channel Islands quote-unquote U.S. securities jurisdiction. And you know what? Let's throw an SEC in there, because SEC likes to throw its wang into shit. SEC and Channel Islands Stock Exchange no action interpretive securities regulation is in the interconnected blah blah blah. You know, that looks like it might be pertinent. So securities regulation in interconnected global marketplace blah blah blah. This may or may not cover exactly what we want to know here. I don't know, I might dip into it and follow it up during a next music break or something like that. Well, I don't know that we actually have that much time. What is it, 10:21 right now? Oh shit. My, how time flies when you're having fun. I'm just kind of cursory looking over this thing, and it looks kind of like what we're talking about here. But what I'm getting at with regard to this is, when you look deep enough into any organization, and you see things like the fact that they're in the Channel Islands or the Virgin Islands or the Isle of Man, or there are various places, okay, where they're outside of any kind of reach of the SEC or any U.S. organization, okay, and they find different ways to intersect into the U.S. market. And so, I mean, I flipped through like 2 pages. I went from, let's see here, this fucking thing, this white paper that we went through. Oh no, we didn't go through that. That's food. We went through from one article, and where the hell did I find it? Oh, here it is. Yeah, one article on Bitcoin.com, one term, and we followed it up in Global Advisors, okay, and then we end up way over here with this business about the Channel Islands. Now they say Jersey, because you could easily mistake Jersey for New Jersey, right? But no, we're talking about Jersey in the Channel Islands, which again is kind of a, I don't know, It's kind of a deception. But in any case, where I was going with that, we got global advisors. We haven't even gotten into their shit. We got down, two paragraphs here. I find one term, I look it up, and we're in the Channel Islands. Okay, anyway, continuing on. We haven't even accepted or declined admission into global advisors. Limited important information here. This website is directed only at persons who are expert investors who fall within the definition of, quote, expert investors published by the Jersey Financial Services Commission. B, are otherwise permitted to view this website in compliance with the governing laws of their respected jurisdiction. It is not directed at or intended for retail clients. Any person considering an investment into any of GAJL's products must ensure that they are suitably qualified, experienced, and knowledgeable on such investments, considering jurisdictional rules, regulations, jurisdictions, tax implications, residence or domicile, and their financial circumstances. Past performance is not a guide to what may happen in the future. Prospective investors should be aware that the value of their investments could fall as well as rise. Any investment carries the risk of potential loss of capital, and investors may not get back the value of their original investment. Information on this website may include data and opinions derived from third-party sources. GAJL does not accept liability for the accuracy or completeness of any such information or opinions, which can be subject to change without notice. Furthermore, the information provided does not constitute an offer to buy or sell shares, nor does it constitute investment, legal, or tax advice. Details relating to the investment, including the risk disclosures, can be found in the offering document. This brief statement cannot disclose all the risks or other significant aspects of the various market traded by GAJL, pursuant to an exemption from the CFTC in connection with accounts of qualified eligible persons. The contents of this website do not require to be and has not been filed with the CFTC. The CFTC has not passed upon the merits of any participating in any of GAJL's investment programs or the adequacy of the contents of this website. Taking into account the information herein, if you are in any doubt as to whether this investment is suitable for you, and before you proceed to accessing this website, you should consult your financial advisor. By agreeing to access this website, you accept the statement of disclosure above and undertake to provide true and accurate information upon request. I accept. GABI, Professional Investment Management in Digital Assets. Money is changing. We invest in that opportunity. Let us see if they have any real information that we might actually be interested in. Strategy. Dude, I gotta tell you, this is a really impressive looking fucking website. But let's review their strategy really quick, because this is often telling. Our strategy, and this is on globaladvisors.co.uk, apparently not in the United States, but still fun. An innovative, unique, uncorrelated asset management program. Global Advisors Jersey Limited has a 16-year history of managing client funds as a regulated investment manager. The firm's principals started trading in the commodity markets over 30 years ago, initially in the discretionary capacity and more recently evolving into an advanced systemic approach. After studying Bitcoin for some time, the firm's principals were struck by the parallels with commodities as those developed into investable asset markets from the mid-1990s onwards. Global Advisors Jersey Limited has created the first institutional-grade Bitcoin investment strategy, GABI, applying the highest professional management standards to create a truly groundbreaking venture. The aim of GABI is to provide exposure to the price movements of Bitcoin while managing the risks which come with being involved in an exciting new market. Bitcoin's acceptance has grown rapidly as investors have begun to recognize the value of an asset with limited issuance, insulated from the effects of any country's monetary policy, which it's not. GABI is the first institutional-grade program for managing exposure to Bitcoin. We have a proven track record managing the risks and inherent volatility while outperforming the US dollar. Bitcoin index over the long term. We bring extensive expertise and research into the drivers behind Bitcoin as the preeminent digital currency, investing long, short, and trading, in order to produce outstanding returns for our investors. Our technology, a cutting-edge approach. Founded in 1999, Global Advisors principles have never wavered from their initial commitment to and open-mindedness in the adoption and application of new and recognized technologies in order to benefit and improve trading efficiency while rationalizing operational risks. Supported by a team of first-rate talent, the development of this robust infrastructure ensures a seamless delivery of performance throughout the trading cycle. With clients and fiduciary interests being paramount, our pioneering automated trading and reporting systems minimize human errors. Orders are dispatched electronically from our trading management software, which constantly focuses on best execution and reconciles trades automatically at administrator level. This hands-on technology-oriented approach formed the basis for the launch, the first Bitcoin investment strategy in the world. Our operations. A bespoke system shaped by 15 years of trading experience. Global Advisors Jersey Limited delivers a wealth of experience across different asset classes and market conditions, being the first to apply professional investment management principles to the Bitcoin as an asset class undoubtedly gives us a competitive advantage. Factors such as market activity, news flow, new market entrants, regulatory developments, and technological developments on the cryptocurrency network are constantly monitored by us so that we can maintain an up-to-the-minute understanding and knowledge of the marketplace and then act accordingly, i.e. they listen to this show a lot. Despite the absence of credit ratings or ISDAs, we have learned how to evaluate and test the strength of active counterparties. As part of our routine operations, we conduct random due diligence on them to ensure they preserve the same exacting standards we demand. News and Press, GABI Monthly Newsletter, March of 2017. Falling a little behind, huh? One of Bitcoin's big funds is selling ahead of ETF decision. GABI Monthly Newsletter, blah, blah, blah. Sounds a lot like an ICO, doesn't it? One of Bitcoin's big funds is selling ahead of ETF decision. Sounds like that sounds a lot like an ICO. Anyway, I do want to go ahead and throw in just a tad of music. I want to review some of my stuff. I got all kinds of messages all over my fucking Telegram and IRC and my Skype, and I'm everywhere, man. I'm everywhere. It is, I guess, just a small price to pay to live in the 21st century. Anyway, been dying to play it. Ministry, Lies, 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 here on Coin Metal. And that was The Hand That Feeds by 9 Inch Nails. Yeah, and so wrapping it all up, because we are in the tailing ends of the third hour, coming up toward 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And, what have we learned today? I think we've learned that even in the age of Bitcoin, people have yet for it to solidify between their ears that nobody is capable of defining what is valuable to you but you. And I've watched it happen several times now where certain people in certain positions in a coin project or some associated thing, they get the idea in their mind that they're more important and their interests are more important than the other interests of other constituencies that happen to utilize their service. And, we saw it happen with Ethereum, where some people were willing to live with the smear of shit on their face and say, hey, look, we fucked up. But guess what? We learned from it and we're walking forward. I think we would have ended up with a much more productive situation with regard to Ethereum had things gone that way. And they may yet at some time in the future. It may be determined that Ethereum as it's currently running isn't a viable thing in the long term. They can't spread interest far enough, between for it to be profitable for the individual participants. And the only people that seem to be making money are these ICO guys who pump and dump the fucking Ethereum that they get. It's like complete silliness. Every time they launch an ICO, it's like they're like in a boat, right? They're already taking water because there's already a whole bunch of holes that have been punched in the hull of the boat by these ICOs, and every new one is another hole below the water line, and they're taking on more water, But I just flipped back to my Twitter feed. I wasn't really looking for an article because we just don't have enough time for taking on another one. But it was with that in mind that, like I said, I started looking at my Twitter feed, and the first fucking article here is on Zero Hedge. SEC ICOs are securities ruling proves Bitcoin has staying power. Complete fucking bullshit. Number one, did you believe that Bitcoin had legitimacy before the SEC even knew it existed? If the answer was yes, then nothing has changed as far as your perception of whether or not Bitcoin has quote-unquote staying power. And as for anybody else, I really don't care what they think. When they look around in another year and Bitcoin is still humming along, as it has been continuously for the last, 9 years? They're going to say, well, gosh, maybe Bitcoin has staying power. And by then it will be way too late for anybody. And by then you will be the massive old school hodler. And, that'll alter the global economic dynamic quite significantly. But in any case, the SEC still thinks that they're an organization that can rule down from on high and determine for other people what things will be considered valuable. And I saw another one of these articles about the SEC's ruling, and the response for it, I took some time and actually crafted what I thought was an appropriate response to this. And the other article was when is a token a security? Read all about it in the Howey test. CoinDesk, blah blah blah. The simplest way to understand why the DAO was a security. And so this is my response to that. When are tokens securities? When the medium of monetary valuation is issued by or for a national government. Otherwise, they're Pokemon cards. And as far as I'm concerned, that should be the level of the SEC's concern with anything going on in crypto. If somebody loses some real sum of money, that was their own fucking stupidity at work. And too bad. You should have looked before you leapt. Follow the second fucking credo of this show. Do your homework. If you do not do your homework, nobody can be responsible for your fuck up but you. You were the one that pointed the gun at your own head. You were the one that pulled the trigger. You did not have to click buy. You did not have to sell when people told you. You know, there isn't anybody that has that level of control over you, not even the SEC, and they can imagine that they do, but that world is gone. And those of us who have been involved for any duration of time know this. If you've performed a Bitcoin transaction from one person to another, from one wallet to another, you know this world, the world that the SEC imagines there is to rule, no longer exists. It's gone. It was gone somewhere back in like 2011. You know, the opportunity to ball up their fists and act like they had some control here was back then, not now. We're a little bit beyond that. And so it is with that, I do want to go ahead and close out this episode. I'm going to be back again on Wednesday, as the current situation provides, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And as far as a last dance, I hadn't even picked one yet. Can you imagine that? It's not like that doesn't happen every single episode, right? And yeah, and so until Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I want y'all to trade safe, because we're in for some bumpy road ahead here, possibly even tomorrow. I want you to do your homework, because it's going to help you make better trades. You know, educate yourself. It behooves you to do it, especially now that you can be the holder of your own funds. And I want you to watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you, man. Anyway, for last dance, we're going to go ahead and throw down a little bit of Push Monkey here, Lefty, here on Coin Metal. Good night, and thank you very much for listening.